And they were right standing at that time in about 18-inch marijuana plants that had just been put in maybe a month before. They were starting what ended up being a 7,000 plant grow. They had an infrastructure, camouflage tents, covered water lines, camouflage painted gear, so they could be, undetectable from the air. And you would not find them until you walked literally right up on them, Andy. And basically, I'm hugging a cut bank under a creek. I got my AR and red dot up on these guys and just thinking, this is not a good place to get in a gunfight. I have no comms. I have a civilian with me. This could get hairy quick. Let's hope it doesn't go that way. But we were prepared. We didn't know what was next. Unfortunately, they got about 15 yards from us. They did not detect us. They were trimming plants, working with their water lines. They turned around and they started to go back up the creek or downstream rather, to go out of view, which we would later learn when we raided it a month later and led that raid with multiple agencies, was their kitchen, their camp, their infrastructure, their drying, their processing area. So that changed the career. That right there was the catalyst day. And then something I'm going to talk about, the shootout where we almost lost one of ours in 2005 in August, changed things, pretty much cemented the fact that we were going to go a different direction and focus on this. So a month later, we raided that grow. We were not leading it, obviously. This is not something Game Wardens did, but we had sheriff's deputies, we had state parks, we had a DEA unit task force, we had probably 30 to 40 of us. And we raided it. We saw bad guys. We did call outs at a long distance. They ran away. We didn't catch anybody, unfortunately. We eradicated 7,000 plants. And then the team leader's like, okay, we're really wrecked. We've got a pave hawk with the Air National Guard and the Special Forces Counter Drug Task Force out of Moffett Field. We're going to fly in. We're going to get hoisted out of here. You guys are going to take your first pave hawk ride, which was cool. First time working with a military ship. But there were some unanswered questions. There was, wait a minute, I think we could have effectively caught these guys if we had done a real stalk and really tried to. I don't think we did a lot of deterrence because they're going to get away, and I'm sure they have a boss somewhere, and I'm sure they're going to be doing something like this again somewhere else. And then I'm like, what are we going to do with all this crap? You got water lines, you got a dry creek. I didn't, and we didn't know at the time, Andy, that the carbofuran metaphos bottles, they were all in that camp. There was all those EPA banned toxic nerve agents all over the water, all over the plants. We had no idea at the time. That stuff's just going to stay out there. All the propane, all the human excrement in the creek, all their trash. And, the team leader told me at the time, he goes, yeah, no, man, we're not trash collectors. That's not our job. Park rangers or the entity that owns this property is going to have to handle that. So no harm, no foul. We worked together with new people. It was great to make those teams. But, again, we were chalking up some mental notes. The fortuitous part of that mission is we met two really savvy sheriff's deputies. One of them that had a hunting background, one of them that was one of 5 snipers on their tactical unit. We hit it off like that. Pennsylvania guy in the woods all the time, like you, heavily into martial arts and an instructor in that. Just a really, really solid individual, a brother for life. And Craig and I determined at that point, hey, he told me, I'm with the sheriff's office. I'm one of 2 people that have a marijuana enforcement team to deal with this stuff in our county, and we are totally, totally undermanned. And I like how you game wardens work, man. Can we work with you? Can we bring you on board? I said, absolutely. So I would, a handful of us would start working with them. And now we started doing it the Santa Clara Sheriff's way. And they did it by the numbers. They wanted to stalk and catch people. Their tactical unit obviously was wired that way. And they just wanted to take this stuff out. And what would later happen is they would start to see the light on the environmental damage that these guys were doing. And because while they weren't game wardens, they were all like you and I. They were conservationists, and they loved everything about the outdoors. And they said, hey, let me convince the sheriff. We have a helicopter. We'll get some volunteers. Let's go clean some of this shit up. Show us what we need to clean up and what the damages are. You're a bird dog now. And it was one of those great teams you would build that you could have never predicted, that really, was progress. It was an evolution of being proactive versus reactive. And I always think no matter where we're at in tactics, what you guys do on the SEAL teams, what we do, domestically, I mean, I think if you're not progressive on some of this stuff, you're never going to make a net. You really aren't. And it was nice to be progressive doing something and not just picking up the pieces, eradicating plants and not being effective. So we started working with them. Fast forward August 5th, 2005. There we are, just a stone's throw from Santa Cruz County, Sierra Azul, Mid-Peninsula open space area, right above the affluent city of Los Gatos. And they have found a big grow site, one that looks like it's been in there for maybe as long as a decade. They anticipate a couple of growers. August is harvest time, so that's a hairy time. And we went in with 3 game wardens. I recruited 2 of my guys, one that I was now a supervisor for that I brought up in my squad and trained in the academy. At the time, I was a patrol supervisor, so I had 7 game wardens in 2 counties working for me, but I'd go on missions and I'd bring people that wanted to go. And Mojo was real savvy, and this was his first raid. And another warden from further up, San Mateo County, and 3 sheriff's deputies. And keep in mind, Bud, that up until this time, none of these, cartel growers had shot at anybody, at least on the West Coast that we were aware of. We very seldomly found people. Usually if they're running, the guns go with them. So you're not finding a lot of guns sometimes. And basically that was the perfect storm for a bad day. They had very heavily armed guys, defenders of the grow, that were watching the harvest. They were kind of protecting the harvest process from anybody coming in, whether it was us in a law enforcement team, another rival cartel faction or cell that might come to take their crop, because that infighting does go on domestically, not as overt because they don't want to be as visible and as loud as it does in Mexico, but it happens. We see dead growers in grows because a rival cell took one out. It's happened. And we were moving up, into position, and one shot went off from guys behind a fortified position from an SKS. And that round basically went through my young warden partner's legs. And it was a typical 7.62 by 39 steel core Soviet. It tumbled and it went inner the left leg and then exited the inner left thigh and just took chunks and then tumbled all the way through his right leg. So he had 4 holes, a lot of tissue loss. He's losing a lot of blood. At that time, this is 05. So you can read between the lines on how much trauma equipment and advanced trauma training we had at the time. Very, very minimal to none. It was basic. Fortunately, Mike D'Amigo, who's now deceased, call sign Apache, was a Beirut Marine Corps veteran, a sniper. And he had a lot of combat gauze and 4x4s and an Israeli and stuff that allowed me to keep my partner from bleeding out. And he was very close. Nobody would come into a hot zone to rescue us with an air rescue because he wasn't hiking out. We're in a gunfight. I'm returning fire on the guy that shot him. One of the growers that had a sawed-off shotgun at 7 yards trained on me and another game warden that I never saw. I was seconds from taking a face full of buckshot, no joke. And then that same sniper that I went on that first mission with, Craig, and Apache, were engaging him with AR fire. Unfortunately, neutralized that threat before I'm no longer here to have this discussion. So things really went well for us considering what had happened, other than that tragic injury to near fatal shooting to Mojo in that 8-second gunfight. And now we're waiting for an air rescue. We're waiting 3 long hours. No one's going to fly into a hot zone. We're hearing a 15-minute ETA over and over again, and nobody's coming. News choppers are flying over like crazy, and we're popping smoke, and the news are just putting out all this false information of, our family members at home are freaking out because the Bay Area, actually the whole Western US news was game warden lieutenant shot, a game warden shot, near fatally, 2 sheriff's deputies shot. It was just turning into, kind of a shit show. But by the good graces, we got the support we needed. We kept Mojo from bleeding out just enough where he could get airlifted out. He survived, thankfully. We got pulled off the hill. We were not allowed to tactically track anybody we had engaged and check on, the one suspect that was down for sure. We had to go. And for 72 hours for the next 3 days, every tactical unit on the West Coast was locking down that hill. The camp program, the Committee Against Marijuana Planning, DOJ teams that go in and fly and just remove dope all year long. 3 teams were there, DEA, Doug James, and the DEA guys I was working closely with, their SAC out of San Jose, knew it was us. We had a lot of brothers and sisters, out there for us, really helping out in mainline law enforcement. And I was getting called from a lot of military buddies, that had been deployed that I was close to. When they finally heard about it, like, what the hell are you guys doing out there, man? A gunfight in Silicon Valley with cartels and AKs and whoa, what, this was that hidden war issue, right? Yeah. So I knew at that point we need to stay in the game. I knew we were undergunned, or, basically we're underprepared, under-equipped, and I think under-supported to do the mission effectively. So it would take another 10 to 12 years of me politicking with the chiefs that believed in us, and, you know, informally having the right people around the state doing this job. Everything from team veterans like yourself to domestic guys that had a lot of experience. And not only were they exceptional game wardens, like some of the best for the mainline traditional stuff, but they were the guys that wanted to go hunt these guys. And that's who we got. And in 2013, I was greenlit by Mike Carrion, who was the chief for just 2 years of our agency. He was one of my mentors in the academy, put me under his wing. He was our defensive tactics ground fighting instructor, an expert in that. And I became an instructor with him, and he just believed in us enough to say, okay, you guys are proposing basically a strike team, and you need to leave patrol to do it. And there's going to be a lot of political backlash on this. So why are they doing that? Why are they leaving patrol? You know, there's going to be internal politics. Internally, there's going to be a problem. There's going to be perception outside of this. It might be a little aggressive in California for game wardens to be doing this. Don't worry about that. Pick your people, test it for 3 months, and we'll see how it goes. And then we'll talk then. And I was shocked, Andy. I mean, for me, and at the time, Captain Nate Arnold, who were the basically the co-founders of this one-off unit, I didn't expect it to ever happen, and now it did. So I got the right people, and that summer was ballistic. August of 2005, we had from July to September to like test our wares. And we've left patrol now. We've trained ahead of time. I got 2 of the best dogs in the state dedicated to the team, all the right operators, and we have no other duties to like muddy the waters. And I think in August, out of 31 days or whatever, how many days are in August, we worked like 29 of them. We had a PAVE Hawk assigned to us from the Air Nat Guard, 2 ground teams of special forces on counter drug that weren't deployed. And those teams were assigned with us combined on Operation Pristine just to hit grow, arrest who we could, eradicate what we needed to, and clean up all that crap with a PAVE Hawk that can carry a 4,000-pound net load of stuff. Not on our budget. The military is providing that. So that, after 6 weeks, convinced the chiefs that we're done. You don't need to justify this, man. Put a team together, develop the testing protocol, get interviews set up. And in January 1st of 2014, you guys are going operational and you're leaving patrol. You're working strictly for the Special Operations Division, straight line for me down at headquarters. And you have no boundaries. Go anywhere in the state you need to go to, work your training out wherever you need to. 2 months later, I got the green light to form a sniper unit. That was awesome. I had been doing sniper instruction and working with sniper teams and teaching schools with the sheriffs and all these other vetted snipers, but we didn't have a team of our own. And now I got to build that with good help. And that SEAL team veteran, Frog, was 9 years as an active sniper, 9 years active and 11 years reserve to do his 20. And he was shocked. I go, dude, we're going to get a sniper team. What? I go, you want to get back on gun? He goes, I never thought I'd see that day in this agency, but it's not just that we're getting to do that. There's a real use for it. Getting that intel, 10 of our snipers in for Overwatch, watching grow sites. I mean, we were watching stash houses where these guys would come and deliver product, and then distribution. And when we had Overwatch with sniper teams, we always had an advantage to protect our entry team. And then when things were clear, the snipers with our small sniper platform that we designed could slip right in and go be part of the raid team because we didn't have a lot of people.